What is your freedom worth to you? Each of our guests had a light bulb moment. They longed to live rather than merely exist. They smashed through their fears and programmed minds, trusting themselves, their faith, and their survival instincts, leaving the guilt, fear, oppression, and drudgery of their past for a brighter future. They took a brave and courageous step into freedom. This is their story of how they got a life. Welcome to Get a Life podcast, X-Cult Conversations. You matter, and so does your story.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Get a Life podcast, X-Cult Conversations. We are joined today by Carmen and Lane, and our special guest is Stéphane from France. Welcome, Stéphane.
Hello.
Stéphane is about to celebrate his 30th year of freedom from the PBCC. So that is a huge accomplishment. I am 30 years as well. And, you know, it's the pictures that you have sent to me are absolutely incredible with what you have accomplished in your 30 years. So I'm actually going to hand the mic over to you and let you tell the viewers and listeners what made you leave and how you have gotten to where you are in this beautiful world we are in now. So go ahead.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for having me. Listen, firstly, I'd like to say thank you to you three and to all those people that have done podcasts in the past, because you're putting so much of your time and it really is changing, I think, the whole situation. So thank you for that. When I heard your first podcast last year, it's about a year ago you've done it with James Di Fiore. I knew immediately this was a changing the scene. I knew immediately something was happening. So thank you very much for that. And you've gone through so much, my story in comparison is just going to be like tiny.
I think we all end up in the same pond of trauma, though. No matter how our stories get us there, we all end up in we all experience the exact same emotions and heartache and abandonment and separation that, we all get there.
Yeah, I know. And then Carmen, you're a Symington. And I was like, really? I mean, does that exist? Because to me, Symington was like a name of, like something unobtainable. So that was really, really funny when I heard you're a Symington. That really, I thought that was really funny. And thanks for doing your podcasts as well, because at the time I did remember hearing some of the stories about, Ken and that whole situation. It was very strange. So yeah, that was a highlight. And Lane, listen, I hope you're going to get into a rant again today.
I'll see what I can come up with.
So, thank you for having me on. It's showtime, isn't it? For me, brilliant.
We're so happy to have you.
Yeah, good. Thank you. So my name is Stéphane, and I was born in Le Chambon. So I'm a French local, and I'm going to present a little bit about me and my family. So I got kicked out when I was age 17. I got shut up. And then a year later, I got out of fellowship and I just left, and I left for London. And I'm going to go through about my journey. So I'm number 6 of a family of 6 siblings, and I'm the last one. And I've got 2 brothers that are out. Oh, it's jumping again.
That's okay. And so viewers are just going to have to bear with this. Stéphane's on the other side of the world.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
we'll go backwards and forwards if necessary. So I'm number 6 of a family of 6 siblings, and 2 of my brothers are out. And unfortunately, 2 of my sisters and another brother are still in, and my parents are still in. My dad only passed recently, so it's now my mum and 3 of my siblings that I don't see that are still with the Plymouth Brethren, and 2 of my brothers that I see, and one of my brothers got his 2 sons out as well. So we're going to talk about all that. So, like I said, I was born, we're very much split family. So I'm looking a bit at my notes as well. And when I was born in 76, my parents had just changed jobs because it was that moment. They used to be teachers. And back then, Taylor said, no, you can't be teachers. You can't be anything to do with government, etc. So anybody who was a doctor or a teacher had to change jobs. And on the summer I was born, my parents had just had to change jobs like super quickly, like within a matter of weeks. And he started selling fabrics on markets. He was doing a market. Each day was doing a different market. And he was selling fabrics. And my mum was kind of being a bit of a seamstress for clients, helping my dad. And I know they were really struggling because by that stage, I was number 6. And suddenly, they were going from a kind of cushy position where they were teachers to a situation where suddenly they had to drop everything and just start selling fabrics on market. For me, it was a blessing in disguise, and you'll understand why later in the process, because I was born in the middle of all these fabrics, and that triggered what job I did today. So we'll get through that a bit later. So I was born in Le Chambon, and Le Chambon is in rural France, in the middle of France, and we interchange with Lyon and Saint-Étienne. And it's one of these villages. So there's Le Chambon is like all sorts of villages around Le Chambon, and I'm from Saint-Agrève, my village. And there were 6 subdivisions in Le Chambon. Subdivisions is where like you go only to that small hall for the prayer meeting and the Lord's Supper. So I was in Saint-Agrève, and then there's another one in Tens, another one in Failly, and another 3 in Le Chambon itself. To set up the scene, Le Chambon stands for good fields. So it was in the middle of rural France, in the middle of the fields, and we're small villages. And it was quite a nice setup, really. My village is quite nice. It's high in altitude, so in the winter we get snow, and we get like nice summers. And I could cycle to go and visit my cousins when I was young, and all that. And Le Chambon had about 300 brethren, because it was about 50 in each subdivision. So it's a big locality of like 300. And we were interchanging with Saint-Étienne and Lyon, and altogether it was about 500. So we used to interchange on the Wednesdays. Every Wednesday was going to Saint-Étienne, which is an hour away. And then at the weekends, it was interchanging one time it was Lyon, one time it was Le Chambon, one time it was Saint-Étienne. And that's a 2-hour drive. So it included loads of driving all the time. So this is one of the interchanges of France. And then there's another 2 interchanges. The other one is Valence, which is about 2 hours further south. And that's Valence, Loriol, and Livron, and Le Voulte. And that's got about 200. Don't quote me too clean on the figures, because it's obviously changed in the last 30 years. But it was about 200 at the time. And there's another interchange further south on the coast, and that's Toulon, Nîmes, and Alès. And again, that was another interchange of 200 to 300 people. And then there was Paris as a standalone, who was just a small locality. It was only like 30 or 40 people in Paris. So as a result, like in France, you kind of know all the brethren. Not only all the brethren of your interchange, but all of them from France. And, if you're being naughty, they all know about it. And if something happens, everybody knows about it. And there's loads of interchanges between the different French towns, because obviously for weddings and things like that. Once a month, there was what was called the Great Interchange in Lyon. And that kind of brought all the French people all together. Not all of them, because some of them had to stay in their localities, but mostly we were part of it by default, because Le Chambon was part of the Lyon interchange, and the other ones got invited. And the brethren from Paris were coming as well, and the ones from Italy were coming. Italy only had like a small locality, and Spain. And then sometimes they used to have invitations from the ones from the UK and from Germany and Sweden. And then once a month, there was the Bristol Fellowship meeting. And that was loads of fun because if you got invited to Bristol, it meant a trip abroad. It meant a trip to the UK by bus, which is like a 12-hour bus journey plus a ferry crossover, or it was a plane journey. So, yeah, that was kind of the rhythm I was brought into for the first 17 years of my life. And on top of that, of course, all the 3-day meetings. And, that's kind of the setup for France.
And I should tell the viewers and listeners what interchange means. Interchange is when you go back and forth between other PBCC communities. So we call it interchange or interchanging with them. Yeah.
And so it's big meetings. Normally, the meeting halls are full. It's about the capacity, at least in the French halls, was about 1,000 people. So it's like loads of logistics of, PBCCs coming from all across, and then being hosted by other PBCCs. And that meant, a lot of that is done, I think, to do weddings, to contribute to people, to young people meeting each other, and then bring up to the community. Because that was one of the problematic of the French people, is that very rapidly, everybody was a cousin of a cousin of a cousin. So then, you needed bigger interchanges, and then they had to start getting married with people from abroad as well.
I've got an interesting fact on marriages. So I have a spy in the PBCC that's pretty high up, and recently BDH has commented on the fact that the interbreeding is becoming so widespread, like the fact that you have no one else to marry and that everybody's a cousin of everyone, that he might just stop marriages.
How's that going to work?
I don't know. Leave it up to the man of God. He talks to Jesus, so he's got to know. He's got to have some great plan, right? But that doesn't for having the perfect church, right? The one chosen place by the Creator. You'd think that they wouldn't run into weird problems like that. Why wasn't that figured out before?
Yeah.
Maybe it's because you're an interbreeding cult. Sorry, go on. That was just a little rant. I'm warming up.
There you go. I don't know if I can say much more about the Brethren in France. I think that set up the scene. Moving on to my childhood, because we were in that village, and I was going to the public school. We're still in those days where it was allowed. When I was a kid, my childhood was quite good fun, really. I was allowed quite a few things. I was seeing my cousins all the time. I was allowed to cycle to their place because the roads were not dangerous. So I'd say, well, okay, I'm taking the bike, and I was going to play with my cousins. All of my cousins were girls, so I was surrounded by girls all throughout. And like you've seen in some of the pictures, I was dressing up, and I was dressing up as a bride, and I was playing all the girl stuff. And it was fun. And then I started school, and that's when you kind of realize, okay, there's something a bit strange now, because I'm not quite I'm not having the same rhythm as the others, and I'm not allowed certain things. I'm not allowed to eat with them suddenly. So, from an age of 6 or 7, you start questioning things. You think, well, what's going on? Why am I not allowed to their birthday parties, or why they're not allowed to be invited round ours? Oh, there we go. This is me. Don't leave it for too long, Cheryl. You can move on.
I had to put it up there when you referenced.
So this is me playing with a veil and all that. I used to be fascinated, obviously, by weddings. There used to be loads of weddings all the time, and I really liked that. My sister got wed when I was 7 years old, and she made her own dress because obviously my dad was selling the fabric. So yeah, she was also a seamstress. And I learned to sew from a very, very, very young age. About 6 or 7, I knew how to sew, how to use a sewing machine and all that. My mum showed me. And so fun and games, really, with my cousins. And then at school, I was having really good marks. And one of the things that was different is in France until recent years, maybe until 20 years ago, not so recent, but until 20 years ago, they used to have school on a Saturday morning, just the half day. And of course, we as Brethren were not allowed to go to the school on Saturday morning. So from that young age, we already stood out, because it was like all the other kids were going to school Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday morning, except us, except the plebes. So very quickly, people in the village, like even kids, were asking, well, why are you not coming on a Saturday? And you had to, well, how can you explain that when you're 7 years old? You say, oh, because of the Lord Jesus. It just meant it just meant nothing to them. Like, they wouldn't understand. And on top of that, they had, you know, what's surprising is, like, they had these authorization from the state, from the government, from the town halls to say, and from the schools to say, okay, all the plebes' children will be allowed not to come on Saturday mornings, which, when you think about it, is really not right. It's, when you're a kid, why not? But when, as you grow up, you really miss out on the program for all these hours that you miss out on a Saturday. So not only that, but all the lessons that were done on a Saturday morning, you then had to go and collect them to the kids that had attended the class and write down what they'd been writing to figure out what you'd missed out, so that on the Monday and Tuesday, when they would ask questions about whatever topics were addressed, you would know about it. So that was kind of really embarrassing. And then in villages like that, people really knew what was going on, because came 7:30 at night, suddenly there was all these cars driving to Le Chambon, to the next 10-kilometer village, and they're all going in the same direction at the same time, all coming back in the same direction at the same time. And so people in the villages knew, and we got bullied. I mean, not in a nasty way, but people were talking. They were saying, you know, what are these meetings you're going to? What are you doing? And what's all that? So kind of from a very young age, you know you are in a different setup to other people. And of course, you don't have television. So they're discussing what they've watched on television the previous night, and you don't have that, and you don't have the music. So really quickly, you realize what's going on. But as a child, it didn't bother me that much, but very rapidly it changed. Because, so like I said, I'm the sixth sibling, and I'm 14 years apart to my older brother, and 12 years apart to my older sister, and 10 years apart to the next brother, etc. And my sister got married first when I was 7 years old, and my brother when I was 9. And he got out of fellowship about a couple of years later than I'm not very good with all these dates, because it's the story of my brother, it's not mine. So I don't remember how long after he got married it was that he got out of fellowship. But I remember I was about 10 years old at that stage. And the moment he was out of fellowship, that was it. Like, we were seen as, like, we were watched. We're like, what is happening with that family? Why have they already lost a son? He just got married, and now he's, you know. So suddenly we were quite, I could really sense it, that we were like frowned upon really quickly. There was a major shift then. To add it all up, my other brother got out of fellowship at that stage, like about 18 months later, or a couple of years later. So then I was 12. And so really rapidly at that stage, I really felt, oh, okay, suddenly it had changed. And then I was told, oh, you can't talk to the girls after the meetings because now you're of age, and there's all the flesh things. Oh, do you remember, Lane, once you had a rant about the flesh? And I was like, I know exactly. Like, they came and said, you can't talk to the girls because of the flesh. I was 12 years old. I was like, what are you talking about?
What is the flesh? Like, it's just...
I wouldn't understand. I was like, what? It was like the flesh. Yeah. So very quickly, like, because my parents had, like, lost 2 of their sons effectively, we were really watched and under scrutiny all the time. And that meant that my sister, the one that was left at home, and my other brother and I were under intense scrutiny from then on.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's when it started to suck a little bit, because it was like, okay, they're not going to give me a good time about this now. I had loads of pressure. And of course, at that stage, you know, I'm turning 12, I'm going to high school by then, or what's it called? We call it college, but you call it high school, secondary school.
Yeah.
Yeah, college.
Yeah, when you turn 10 or 11.
Oh.
And then gradually, you know, yeah, you turn 13, 15, 14, 15. And I was like, oh, okay. I understood, like, I gradually kind of understood I was gay, but it wasn't even a thing because I didn't know it existed. So I kind of knew something was wrong, but I didn't have the information about it. So I was like, I didn't put a name onto it. And it's quite funny because it's when I started, secondary school, I got a bit bullied at school. They called me like names like faggot or queer, or like in French it's la tapette. And I was like, what is it? And they were like, haha, he doesn't even know. And I was like, really quickly, like, so it was, in a way, it was quite fun even for them because they're like, he doesn't even know he's doing this. So it was an eye opener. Suddenly I was like, oh, okay, so there might be something wrong with me here. And I need to be very careful. How do I approach this with the brethren? Are they going to notice in the brethren as well? If they noticed at school, surely they're going to know in the brethren. So how can I was like, oh, I need to put on a facade now. I need to hide this.
Yeah.
They need to not know about it. And I was also in denial about it because I was like, no, it can't happen. It's, a man and a wife and the babies and all that. And gradually I was like, okay, something is wrong and I've got to face this. But I was really playing two minds about it. I was like playing a double game, really, because I had to hide it, because I was in denial. So I really thought I was going to get married and it would disappear. And then when I was about 14 or 15, I got caught. I think I got caught after school by one of the other sisters, and I was hanging out with the kids after school, and they were all kissing behind the school shed as you do, and I was going with them, and I was not kissing anybody. But anyway, it got reported that whilst the buses were waiting, Stéphane was also there. So then at that stage, my two brothers are out of fellowship, and immediately it was a call to the leaders. And I remember that session quite vividly because I went there and they said, do you realize what you're doing after school is not right and everything? And suddenly it's like, and this is midnight. This is after the meetings, and they corner you like at no time. Like, and you're tired. And I was 14 or 15, and I'm thinking, well, why am I in this bedroom with the elder asking me all these questions? And suddenly, eventually, I just went on. But anyway, I think we're talking about this, but I think I'm the other way inclined. I think I like boys and that. So I don't really see why hanging out with the girls is a problem. And suddenly they were like so taken aback. They were like, this massive silence, and go like, they really didn't know what to say. They were like, oh, how do we deal with this? And they were like asking, really? So what does it do to you? Who does it do it with? And I was grilled until probably 1 o'clock in the morning. It was going on and on and on. And they were saying, well, we'll call Brucey, well, at that time it was John Hales. We'll have to call him and discuss it with him, because see if you can be cured, and we'll pray for you and all that. And I was like, and gradually, the more the session was going, I was like, shit, why have I mentioned that now? Like, I shouldn't have said anything. Because this is just going to be horrible. And I thought, if they ask me to confess in public, I was like, it's a big no. I'm gonna like die of humiliation.
And did you know of any other gay PBCC guys?
That was it. Is because in Le Chambon there was another bloke who got out of fellowship for being gay. So actually, when I announced it, instead of saying, because I didn't even know what I should be saying, like gay wasn't a term for me, and homosexual wasn't either. Like I just didn't know how to say it. So I said, "Je suis like Florent," and they were like, "Oh." Like, it dawned on them what I was trying to say. And that, well, yeah, bless. Florent was out of fellowship. He's now since died, unfortunately. He's died quite young, when he was 50, about 10 years ago or something like that. So bless, yeah, I can talk about him because anyway, he's now is passed. But yeah, so he got out of fellowship a few years before this was happening, maybe like 4 years before or 5 years before. And it was also hush hush as to why he was out of fellowship, because he was really unclear when they had the meeting. They said, we've got to withdraw from him because of 2 Timothy 2 or something, like they quote a verse, and then everybody was out of the meeting searching their Bible. What does it say in 2 Timothy 2? And it just says about men lying with men or something, and they, and going to hell, obviously. And I wasn't of age to, and these things were just not crossing my mind at that time. I was just not, it really, it was all very strange. So anyway, then I got cornered, and I announced to them I was gay, and they didn't do anything. They just did not know how to deal with it, apart from saying, well, we'll pray for you and we'll call Mr. Hells to see what we can do, etc., etc. And nothing happened. And I was really, really worried that I would have to confess or that I would be shut up. But I hadn't done anything. So it kind of got brushed under the carpet. And I just remember, my brother, when we were out and we left at 1 o'clock in the morning, he says, what is going on? Are we shut up? What have you said? Because he thought we were all going to be in so much trouble. And I was like, no, I said nothing. It was just about the kissing the girls at the bus shed and all that. And it wasn't that. And, it's cringing, isn't it?
I think that's what it's hard to convey to the viewers and listeners outside of the PBCC, how intense these priestly visits are. And because you're so isolated in there, when those priests show up for a priestly visit, you are immediately on high alert of being shut up. And we should tell the viewers and listeners that out of fellowship means being kicked out of the PBCC. Shut up is the first level of being kicked out. And then when they talk about withdrawn from, that's your last level of excommunication. So when we refer to out of fellowship, that's what that means.
Yeah.
And I want the listeners to know that the term priestly visit isn't really correct. It's a priestly interrogation.
Yes.
They are like murder detectives, except it's not a murder. They're looking for sins. Yeah. And they will sit with you and go, what did you do? Did you kiss her? Did you put your hand on her leg? Did you touch him? What did you do? Who looked at who first? Who kissed who first? And these fucking disgusting old men will sit there and interrogate underage children about shit they shouldn't be speaking to them about. Yeah. It's disgusting.
Alone. So they do this alone. I had priestly visits in Morse Hope's car by myself before, right? My parents weren't around. So it's just to get the whole context of why when we talk about these priestly visits, how often you see us literally cringe inside because they were so intense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It really is like that.
Yeah.
And just going back on being shut up, I forgot to mention that before my brother got married, so when I was really young, I was 6 or 7, they got shut up for a couple of months, and so it was summer, I don't know, 85, 88 or 80, no, 85 or 86, so. No, it was summer 84, sorry. Summer of 84, because I remember it quite vividly. My older sister had got married, and I was visiting her during the summer holiday. And suddenly we had to be hushed back at home because we were shut up. And there was this crisis going on in Le Chambon and Lyon. And, they get regular crises every 5 or 6 or 8 years. They get their crisis, and because they've got to really put control again on the kids when it starts getting out of control and they can see they're not controlling the situation. There's a crisis. So it happened that we were shut up for those 2 months, and it is really a horrible phase because suddenly, how I said your rhythm is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday meetings, and Sunday all day meetings. Well, suddenly there's none of that going on, and the other kids, I couldn't go and see them anymore. I couldn't cycle to their place. If you see them in the shop, you can't even say hello. And it's you're shunned immediately. And I lived that when I was at that age of like, I was 8 or 9. And so really, when I was 14 or 15, I was like, really, I don't want to be in that position at all, because I know how horrible it is. And I remember how the other thing that's really horrible, and I think it's been addressed already on these podcasts, is when you go back to the meeting and the humiliation, like they gather everybody in the hall, and then, they start speaking, they take the mic and they say, oh, now we're going to go and get them outside because they're reintroduced back in. They're allowed back in because they've repented or whatever rubbish they go on. And you've got to then walk into the meeting hall where everybody looks at you, and this is, oh my God, this is like so
embarrassing,
so bad.
It's a walk of shame, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a walk of shame.
And it's a walk of shame. And then my brothers had to take the mic and confess and say sorry and say we're repenting and we'll never do it again. And we've seen that our actions and not, we don't want to do this ever again, la di la, and all this for not even, they were just like really shut up for like, just, I don't know, like having races in the cars and just, like talking to the girls after the meetings. It wasn't anything serious. It was just like they were trying to really like nail it in the butt that there was all this kind of naughty boys action going on, and they were like, no, we've got to put a stop on this. And
they do to show who's in control, right? They want everybody to know, especially I found like from Maple Creek, it was a small village too, right? Is they really want those kids and everybody in the small communities to know who's in control.
Yeah.
So they pick the stupidest things to give a priestly visit over.
Completely. Yeah. So then going back to that age, then, I was like, 14, 15, I kind of told them that. And then it's also the time you go to high school, which for just the generation before me was not allowed. You had to finish school at 16. But I had like, I was really like having good marks at school. I was like good in everything. I didn't have to make too much effort. Bearing in mind that you don't have much time for homework when you come back from the school. It's like straight into eating your dinner and then being hushed to the meetings. So rushed to the meetings. So I had really good marks. And I said, well, no, I want to go up till the age I'm 18. And ideally, I'd like to do fine arts. Oh my God, like fine arts? They were like, what? I really was a novice in that family. They were like, my parents, I just remember like they looked at me, they were like, the arts? They said, that will get you nowhere. And so they couldn't find any excuses. I was like, I know, but that's what I want to do. And they were like, no, you can't do that. I was like, but why? And then eventually somebody came with an excuse to say, oh no, you've got to study the nude, and brethren, don't study the nude. So, the nude, no fine arts. So I was like, gutted. So I was like, so I went, literature then. And I went, literature?
Even worse.
Panic alert. So, gosh, I had to do carpentry in the end. I mean, seriously, it was like so evil of them, because I got sent to this. So I got sent to this school in Saint Etienne, because in our villages there wasn't a high school, a lycée, a college. So I got sent to Saint Etienne, where I was in this. People doing carpentry, very often they come from like backgrounds where they're not necessarily cultured or cultivated. At least in France, is that unfortunately it's the kind of garage lane where. I had good marks. I wanted to do literature or fine arts or something, and then being thrown into carpentry with all these really bad boys and everything. And I'm just not prepared for that. And Saint Etienne is a big town, it's multicultural. It's got people coming from other countries. It's got immigrants. It's got, the bad boys. And I was thrown into that school. I was just not prepared. And that was a right nightmare for me. At this stage, so I'm 15 and 16, it was really, really bad, really bad. So I kind of really, that is really one of my grudges. I really don't think they've listened to me at that stage. And I think it was really cruel that they did that. But in a way, it it also made me man up and, okay, go and face the smell of coffee. But it wasn't fun. That wasn't fun. And I had to stay with my uncle and auntie in Saint-Etienne. They weren't pleasant at all. They weren't pleasant to me. And I just kind of started. So very quickly, I'm kind of saying, okay, like I've got to be a bad boy too. Then if that's the case, I was like going, okay. So with one of the other peeps, like who was also the same age, we go to that supermarket and just go, oh, let's steal something. And we stole some perfume out of anything. Like, this is so embarrassing. We stole a bottle of perfume. So, of course, we put it in our jacket. And, of course, what happens? We go through the exit. 2 guards say, can you follow us? And, you just got, the world was crumbling and under me. I was like, shit, what have we done now? This is the end of the world. That they're going to know. And so we start lying to these security guards, saying, no, we'll give it back. We'll give you the money. We'll, don't tell our parents. Please, don't do anything about this. We'll do anything. We're offering random things. Will work. And they said, no, well, we've got to call the police. You were caught, and we're like, oh, gosh. And this is on a Monday night after school. So at 7 o'clock, we're still there. We're not back at the houses of my uncle. And for my colleague, it was the house of his uncle. And we're trying to put up stories and we're trying to invent something that we got caught, but it wasn't really us. And, all this is just collapsing because you can't make up a story. You've been caught in the act of stealing something, and now the police is there, and you've got to go to the police station, and then they say, who do you want to call? And instead of calling our uncle, who was really our legal person that should have come and pick us up, we thought, oh, there's this really cool sister, and maybe she can come and pick us up because she won't say anything. So we said, well, can you call such and such? And say, well, who is she? And they said, no, it's our friend, and she'll take us to our uncle because she's got the car. And so they call her. And of course, she said, well, no, I can't come and pick them up. You've got to call their uncles. So that just added another layer of bad. Oh, that was so embarrassing. I hadn't even put down in my story. I forgot about that. I'm just thinking about it all now. So anyway, cut the story short. The 2 uncles come to pick us up, and then it's just this was diabolical. Then we had to confess. We on that night, we didn't go to the meeting. And then the next day said, well, okay, we're sending you back to your parents. You're going back to Le Chambon. And so we had to go back to Le Chambon. And we had, again, one of these priestly afternoons as we arrived. And they were sitting, I remember, in the lounge, and they're on the sofa. And we're sitting on the sofa. And there's this older, and he hasn't realized what's going on. So I said, we're explaining. So then we stole a bottle. And he went, a bottle of what? Thinking it was a bottle of whiskey or wine or something. And I said, a bottle of perfume. And they were like, perfume? It was
it's like they expected you to steal booze.
I know. Yeah, it would have been better to steal booze, probably, in their eyes. I mean, it was so embarrassing, the whole thing. So then they say, well, we're now going to go to the meeting and you'll have to confess before the meeting. So this is my turn now to be sat there. But there were regularly people having to do that, to confess of having done, for silly sins like that, for little things, you were not shut up. You just had to confess, but it was humiliating enough. And for bigger things, you were shut up. So on these occasions, we're not shut up. And so the other brother, they say, the elder starts the meeting saying, oh, before we can start the meeting, there's somebody who needs to say something. So we can address it. They want to say sorry or whatever they say. I don't know. And so it starts with the other brother. So it goes well, we've been caught in the act. We were in the supermarket and we stole something and we got caught, and we're really sorry, etc., etc., etc. And so he finishes. He puts his mic down and he's sobbing, he's crying and everything. And then it's my turn, and I'll take the mic and say, and me too. And I put the mic down. And so, of course, the leader goes like, takes his mic immediately. He's furious. He says, Stéphane, it's not enough to say me too. You've got to explain what you've done and say, repent and say you're sorry. So, anyway, I had to do that. All went back to normal. And yeah, I mean, it was just one thing after the next. I was good in school, but I wasn't doing what I wanted. At this stage, I could really tell my sexuality was catching up with me, even though I had my promised girl and we were calling each other on the phone, and I was still pretending to be really in love with her because, by this stage, close to when I was shut up, I was 16 and coming into 17. And, the wedding is only a year ahead because, when you get 18, it's time to get married.
Yeah.
So already at that stage, they put pressure on, where are you going to live? Are you going to work and, save some money for the house and all that? My brother just in front of me, just ahead of me, who's the one who's still with the Peebs, is 4 years older. By this stage, he's got his house and he's about to get married. So I'm 16 and he's 20 because he's 4 years older. And he goes to John Hales to see if he can get married. And he obviously, by this stage, we've got this reputation with a bad family, with a bad Vergnon, bad blood, 2 boys out, me just having my erratic behavior, stealing bottles of perfume and acting like a girl most of the time, it's just, it was bad. It was bad. and so Mr. Hell says, no, I don't think you're ready for marriage. You're too smooth yet. You need to wait at least a year. So he's absolutely gutted he can't get married. All the other brethren are getting married. And at that stage, when you're 20, and I really felt for him, like you've really won that urge of, touching the girls and having a wife and all that.
Yeah.
He's not allowed. He's not allowed. So I wish he'd been allowed because then he got married. And when we got shut up, he would have changed the whole thing. Anyway, at this stage, I'm like really having a double life. I'm secretly going to take loads of books from the local library. They know me in the village and they kind of like gradually they say, oh, you want now to kind of read this author and read this author. I obviously loved reading, and reading I was allowed as long as they were kind of okay books. But then gradually the ladies from the library, it was very nice. The ladies from the library said, oh, you want to read this one? I was like, well, I can't, this is too risky. I just can't take this one back because, they'll throw it. They won't even return it. I won't even be able to return it. So we had to come up with the thing where we had a double bag. So I had a plastic bag and we put the other books in the first bag. Then we put another bag on top and fill it in with I'd take architecture books or art books or something like big fat books. So when I come back and say, oh, I got the books from the library, and, they would glance and say, oh, they're okay books. And then underneath there was the naughty books, which are not That's really so naughty, smart. Just from authors who are not allowed. So by all means, it's not seriously naughty books. And I kind of forget to say that in my last year in Saint-Agrève, in my secondary school, my English teacher really warmed up to me because she arrived and she says, well, how come you know such good English? And what is going on? She really is like, what is going on with this kid? He's got a much better English than anybody else in the classroom. And she could tell something wasn't right. And she started saying, oh, we're going to watch a film. And she knew very well that we were not allowed to watch films. So what we had to do when it was the film time, you were supposed to step out of the classroom. The others could watch the film and you were supposed to just go in the study and then come back an hour later and they would have watched the film. But I was the only Pib in my class, and she said, well, can you not stay? And I was like, no, I've got to go. She said, well, you can stay for this one. She got a bit like, stay for this one. I was like, okay. And I won't, she says, I won't tell. And the other kids were like, no, we're not going to say. So gradually I was staying, she was putting more and more classes with where we had films. And I remember very vividly one that, initially it was just stuff to learn English, so situations in the street or in a school in England or etc. And then one day was a full-on film, and she'd arranged it, and it was Dead Poets Society. So I don't know whether you watched it, but it really triggered it for me. It was like, because it's about this kid who's not in the right place and not in the right setup. And at the end of it, he kills himself. And it's a really sad movie. And all of that because he's not allowed to read poetry. And very good movie with, what's his name? Robin Williams. Robin Williams as a teacher. And they go, anyway, I'm ranting now. So she showed me that movie, and that was all these were mind openers, and I really warmed to her, and she knew something was wrong, and she then became a real helper in the outside, because I started calling her and I started having a liaison with her on the phone, and she would also come to the shop and buy fabrics and say, how can I see Stéphane for 2 minutes? And my dad was like, why does your teacher want to talk to you? And that was really nice. And then later on, she became a total support. And I'm getting a bit moved talking about her, because she's still a good friend. She's still one of my best friends. And that was a big changer. Yeah. And we're like 23 years apart. And she's still alive. And yeah. So, yeah, I mean, there's all these people that kind of like, have started to have a double life. And then at the library also they were saying, oh, can you listen to music? And I was like, obviously not. But I was lucky enough that my mum was the one who was translating all the booklets, the ministries.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were in English. She was translating them into French for people that couldn't master English enough, like the elderly. So we had a tape player where she would record. She'd translate all the meetings and record them. So as a result, it meant that at home we had a tape player. I mean, this is big. When you're in the Brethren, nobody else had a tape player. So I started. I was like, okay, yeah, I could listen to some music in hiding, in secret. So at the library, they started giving me some music cassettes as well. So, yeah. And so I'm turning now this is turning up to when, what was bound to happen. Another crisis happened. All the youth were becoming rowdy and too noisy. And a couple of them made some big mistakes. They went into bars and got caught, which triggered them being shut up and then saying, oh yes, but it's not me, it's not only me that's done it, such and such has also done it, such and such. They start to grass, you see. So
the snitches, those snitches.
I know exactly. And what was bound to happen, we got away from it, my brother and I, which was really my parents were like, I can't believe that all these people are already shut up and we're not. They really literally were telling us that. And we were like, I know, but I'm clever. I've been clever at hiding it and not telling anyone what we're doing. All the cheeky stuff that we've done in the back, And then, of course, one Sunday morning, which is what I said, on my post on Facebook, on that Sunday morning, the phone rings and it's 4:00 in the morning. And I had to go down immediately and talk to the elders, and you think, well, hang on, what is going on? Really, 4:00 in the morning? Could you not wait until at least, the breaking of the bread or whatever? But no, it couldn't wait. And I was grilled for an hour and a half as to something I had to confess, and I had no idea. And I didn't want to give them much thing. So I was like, no, I really can't. I don't know what, I really don't know. I don't know what I've got to confess. So I've not been doing anything bad. And I was like, I can't see. And they wait, and they goes like, you sure you can't see? The Lord can see you, And it's they put so much pressure. And you think, oh, yes, he can see me. But what really have I done? And I was thinking, is it the books? Is it the tapes? Nobody normally knows about that, or not so many people. And the ones that were in the know, that's not their profile, that they wouldn't have, snitched me. So what could it be? And eventually at 5:30, they hadn't got anything. And they said, okay, you're shut up and you really need to think about what you're doing and all that, And I remember I was like, okay, this is it. I'm probably not going to be able to go back now. But it wasn't as clear cut as that, because I for a year, I thought, I will go back. And then, nah. So I was taken off school at this stage, and I was literally shut up by then. So like shut up, not only from the brethren, but was also shut up in my bedroom, in that I needed to do my last year from 17 to 18 of schooling, and I had to do it by correspondency. Now, fancy doing carpentry by correspondency. I mean, seriously.
How the hell did they tried to, why did they make you want to do it by correspondence? Why did they?
Oh, because I was taken off the school by then. I was like taken off the school system. I was too bad. And it was like, you're at home and you're going to study by correspondency. So
but too bad in the church's eyes.
Sorry?
Too bad in the church's eyes. Like you were bad in the
Yeah. And so because school obviously was a bad influence, and they thought, well, it's like direct access to the outside world. And also because my school was in Saint-Etienne, I couldn't stay with my uncle, because otherwise that would have meant my uncle needed to be shut up as well.
Yeah.
So like it's kind of complicated like that. If you're shut up, you're just back in the family unit, and everybody's shut up with you, unfortunately. So yeah.
So you had to stay did you have to stay in your bedroom while you were shut up?
All day long. I was only allowed at lunchtime.
For everyone to hear that literally, like, you're not roaming around your house.
No.
You're confined to your room. Yeah. Tell us that story.
Yeah.
That's got to be illegal confinement, right?
I know. From 17 to 18. It was like so bad. So I had a window at least. I could watch outside. But it was just so bad. And I had to study and I had to concentrate. And I was allowed once or twice a week, because I was allowed to go to the post office to post my homework. And every time I pretended there was such a queue, it's taken me 2 hours to go to the post office. I mean, clearly, I'm pretty sure they didn't believe it, but they knew I was going for a cycle ride or something. I was allowed
your yard time. That was your yard. That was your yard time. You were in prison.
Exactly. I was allowed now and again a cycle to go for a quick tour of a cycle, and I had to be back 15 minutes later. It was bad. Wow. It was bad. Fortunately, my dad had his fabric shop, so I was always like very keen. I said, "Can I go to work? Can I go and help you?" And I was helping him on the markets as well. So that kind of took me out. But during the school weeks, they really wanted me to follow my hours, and I had loads of homework to do, because this is the last year just before your baccalaureate exam. So it was like I needed to work, and I wanted to have it as well, because I also know, I was like, okay, you're going to get out into that world now, and if you don't have your exam, you're shooting yourself in the foot. So you'd better work. It's the worst of two evils. I was like, I might as well work. I enjoyed studying. I didn't mind studying, but I mean, come on, like I was shut up in my bedroom, so that wasn't much fun.
And did you eat your meals in there too?
Yeah, so I was allowed to then I was allowed to go downstairs in the kitchen and eat my meals with my brother, and my mum would watch us because she wouldn't eat with us because they would eat separately. So my brother and I were eating because we were the shut up ones, and they were kind of shut up with us, but they were eating separately. I mean, seriously, for a year that went on. So I was like having my breakfast separately, my lunchtime separately, and our dinners separately. And that wasn't even much fun. Towards the end, I was like, I'd rather have my tray in my bedroom and just be left on my own, really, because before eating, you had to read a little Bible verse and do that little prayer, like say thank you for the food, and you're thinking at that stage I was like, no, I'm fed up saying thank you for the food, like I don't want to do this, like what was it, dear Lord Jesus Christ, la di la di la, what was it again? God and Father, thank you for the food.
God and Father, thank you for the food.
Yeah.
and they say it when the cook is right there, like the cook is sitting there.
Yeah. And you go like, can I just eat now? Anyway. And in the morning, like she was saying, you need to read a verse. And every morning I was like, it was just like too much. And I loved my parents so much. And I really didn't want, I was such a great kid. Sometimes I'm thinking back to it. I was like, I really wasn't the bad boy that I should have been. And yet, and she was like, oh, read your verse. And you go like, okay, I'll read the verse if that's what I must do. But all throughout that last year, and I was still in that, library, and I was getting all these side books on the side and the side tapes. Because then that was the thing, is because I was studying by correspondency, I was allowed to listen to some tapes. Like some of the homework was tapes I had to listen to.
Yeah.
So sometimes I would just listen to music, and my mum would come running upstairs, like saying, "What were you listening to?" And I was like, "No, it was the school." I could hear her coming up. I was like, "No, it was the homework. It's during the homework, like they're playing this song, and that's what it is." And I was like inventing all sorts of things. And anyway, came New Year's Eve. So I was 17 and a half, and came New Year's Eve, and I was still in touch. I was randomly being able to do phone calls in hiding to people from the outside, to the people from my school. And they said, well, we're doing, New Year's Eve. We've got this dance hall that we're hiring. And they were explaining all that to me, that they were doing, the ball. New Year's Eve ball, and I was like thinking, oh, I really want to go and I can't, and it really sucks. And now I'm shut up, but I've been shut up for 4 months now. This is August to December, and then in December I was like, that's it, I've had enough, I'm doing this, I'm going, because I really want to go. It's like I could just come to boiling point by then, like, I had to go. So anyway, I arranged from one of my brothers. My two other brothers are also out of fellowship by then, and I'm getting contacts with them. We're very clever at hiding it, but it's happening, because whenever my brother's bringing his kids back or whatever to his ex-wife, I could see them going in front of the house with a car, and I'd sort of go like, oh, I'm just going for a bike run for a quick 15 minutes, and I would just go behind, and I knew they'd be there. So all this was going on. I said, okay, New Year's Eve, you're picking me up midnight. I'm going to this 11 o'clock. I'm going to this ball. And I did. And on New Year's Eve, my dad said, oh, well, maybe we should go for a petit tour, like a small tour, and watch what the other brethren are doing. Oh, that was the thing, is like, they were so bored not going to the meetings that sometimes we go on a car ride to go in front of the other brethren's house to see who was invited and who was hosting who and who was there for the break. I mean, it was so bad. They were craving the brethren, craving the rhythm of it, and who's had the baby and who got married and all that. And I mean, thinking about it, it's like, you feel so sorry, for all that.
Yeah.
And so on New Year's Eve, he said, should we go for a little car ride? And I was like, no, I really don't want. I'm tired. I want to go to bed. Thinking I'm being picked up in an hour. So I went to bed, and then really quietly I sneaked out of the bedroom, and my brother picked me up. I don't know how I did it. I managed to sneak out with them realizing. I went out to see my brother. He flashed the lights, he was there, and he took me to the other place, to the dance hall, which was about an hour away. But in the meantime, my other brother, who's still shut up with me, went to my bedroom to have a little chat. We always use that sometimes late at night. We'd knock on the door and say, oh, do you want to have a chat? And we'd be talking about exiting the brethren. But obviously he came that night, and he freaked out I wasn't there, and I'd left a note just in case, and he freaked out. I said, well, I'll be back, but I've just gone, and don't come to pick me up. I'm not telling you where I'm going. I'll come back. Not telling you. I'm just going for a dance with my friends from school. And of course, he grasped me up. He just went immediately downstairs and he said, Stephane's disappeared. He's gone. So all hell broke loose. Obviously, my parents immediately knew that who could have picked me up was one of my other brothers. So they went to see my other brother. Anyway, they eventually, my other brother felt so guilty that he'd done it. They realized to have a grip on him at that stage and said, you need to take us. If something happens, you're responsible. He's not of age. He's not 18 years old yet. La-di-la-di-la. And so my brother went on, okay, I'll take you there. And then the humiliation amongst all humiliation. Like, I'm in this dance hall with my school friends, which I haven't seen for 4 months already, and I'm already like the outsider that's acting weird most of the time. Suddenly, my mum arrives with her scarf, and my dad, and like you just want. Oh, it's so embarrassing. And I ran. I was like, no, I don't want to talk to me. Leave me alone. So I kind of disappeared. And it was so bad. Eventually, they gave up and they went back home. And then the next day, oh, when I got so drunk, so wasted, it didn't take much then, but it was like so bad. And I just remember the next day, my brother just dropped me back, and I had a massive hangover by then. And on top of the hangover, there's all what was adding on, like the brethren, and the elders were there. I was like, I'm not talking to you. I'm going to bed. And I just collapsed in bed. And I probably reappeared a day later. And at this stage, I was like, okay, I'm going to be out of fellowship immediately now. And no, instead of putting me out of fellowship then and freeing me, they kind of came back with a vengeance. They say, now you've got something serious to confess. Now the Lord is really not happy with you. Now John Hales has called us.
All the fear mongering.
Made it worse. Gosh. So anyway, at that stage, I was making no more effort. I was like, I'm going out. This is my decision. I want to go out, and I'm going to London. And I went, London? I was like, yeah, because I just want to, this is it. I just want to go away. And whilst I was doing all that, and I did the end of the school year, which finished in June. But by that stage, like, they really knew I was like, I wanted to go out in the world. But they still were not putting me out of fellowship. And I had the first attempt of leaving, like, rather soon after my 18th birthday. So I got everything prepared. I was doing my driving lessons, and I was adamant that I wanted to have my driving license as well just before I went, because A, they were paying for it, which was good. And B, I knew, it'd be complicated to get it in the outside world if, I wouldn't have any money. So anyway, I started working with my dad as soon as I was 18. And I was like, okay, I've got to get out of here now really quickly. So I made the first attempt, like throwing things into a bag and going to the bus station to get the bus. And again, my brother noticed it, and he snitched me again. I was like, and then they went and they picked me back, and I was like, oh, like, you really failed. You need to get better at this, because now they were like, I was under intense scrutiny by then. Like, it was constant. I couldn't move without
maximum security lockdown.
I know, it was bad. It was bad. And then, so I was working with my dad by then, doing the markets. And I think during the markets, some people saw me coming in and out of bars, and coming in and out of bars with my brothers. So they knew I wasn't doing the separation anymore. And it was quite obvious now at this stage. And somebody from the inside grasped me up, and they said, oh, we've seen Stéphane, and he was in that bar with his brother. And, and at that stage, they could no longer not put me out of fellowship. So within seconds, within that same day, I was put out of fellowship, and my parents kicked me out. And after all this, like, I tried to escape for months and months, and I wouldn't be able to escape. And then the moment I'm out of fellowship, they say, well, you've got to move out now, so you've got to go and live in the shop. I was like, so I had to suddenly, like, really quickly. So for the last week, I was living in the middle of the shop, in the middle of the fabric. They set up a camp bed, and I had no shower there. And my mum would bring the tray out for my food and all that. And I was like, this is ludicrous. Like, you've not allowed me to escape when I wanted to go. Like, it was forbidden. And now that it's on your terms, you're kicking me out. So anyway, by that stage, I'd figured out it's only taken me a week. And within a week, I booked my tickets to go to London. And that's it. I was out. Freedom. And it was really bad. I mean, when I left, I said, like, I went to kiss my dad and my mum, like, goodbye. I was still like a good kid, I was like, okay, I'm just going for my life, but I'm a nice person. And I really genuinely want to say goodbye. I know I'm hurting you and all that. And say, no, we can't kiss you. And I was like, oh.
Wow.
it really hurts. It really sucks. Like, you just like, and suddenly it's like, it was dawning on me that I would be on my own. And I knew I had my two brothers, but I really didn't want to use that as an escape line, because it was like, this is not why I'm going. I'm not going because, I don't want the security of my brothers. I don't want them to think, it was easy for him because he had brothers out. I think there was something to do with pride, or I don't know. Like, I just needed to do it on my own. I really needed to go on my own. And my brothers were saying, like, seriously, London, like, this is rural France, and you've never lived in a town, and you're just 18, and and I was like, yeah. I was adamant. London, it was London or Paris. I needed a big town, and I needed to put some distance between them. And I think moving countries meant they wouldn't be able to follow me, because I think even Paris, the brethren from Paris would have worked out where I would live, and they would have followed me and put pressure. So yeah, London on the bus, night trip to London, and there I arrived. Wowzers. Now this is something. I was like, oh my God. So anybody looking inside the Pibs, and if you want to just leave, just do it, because life after the Pibs is quite something. And I had the time of my life. Yeah. Best decision ever.
And we have pictures to prove it. I'm going to show some of these pictures from.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Is like, I arrived in London, and really quickly it was the clubs, the pubs, everything. Like, initially, it's like all the things that are forbidden: the concerts, the clubs, the pubs, the music halls, the restaurants. You want to do all that, and I had absolutely no money, no friends. I knew nobody, but I found a job really quickly in a hotel. And that went quite smoothly for me. And a hotel is the best place to discover the world as well. I was seeing all these people and asking them questions. Where do you live? Where are you from? Are you married? Like, I was like so keen. I wanted to have all the information. And, and people are giving this back to you if you ask them. And like, some of them were telling me, no, this is my mistress, but hush, hush. And you get to know all these things. And there's like people coming, traveling into London from Sweden, from, America, France, the rest of the world. It was brilliant. It's the best place to be. And I was such a hard worker. I was a conference porter, so I was the one carrying the luggage into the rooms and getting a little tip. And I was really happy having that job. And I was doing my shift, and the shift ended, and I would go immediately to the West End, to the pubs, to the clubs, to the museums. I was like craving the culture. Like, I needed, like, I've done all the London museums within the first 3 months. I was like, give all this information to me, speak to me. The cinema, oh my God. It's brilliant. So it was nonstop. I was like not sleeping. I don't think I slept for the first 2 years. I was like really just the minimum sleep you needed. And I was living in the bedsit. London life is harsh. It's not easy. And I had no money, but I was living in this bedsit, which is like kind of youth hostels. Like, you get a bunk bed, that you get a bedroom you're sharing with other people, but you're never there. And there's a microwave and a sink, and you get a shared bathroom on the floor, and you pay that a fortune. London's really expensive, but you get to meet all these other people. And anyway, a bed was a bed, and I was out most of the time because I just had so much to catch up on. And
you know what? I want to tell the people that are inside the PBCC that all just went on, their 3-day fellowship meetings that they had, and they got to have all these extravagant tours that they believe are extravagant tours. The life that Stéphane is talking about is very different than what you experienced in the most recent fellowship meetings. Like, it's completely different. It's not what you're experiencing when you went on these recent fellowship meetings.
No, not at all. Because when I was at school and they were going for their school trip, I remember that same English teacher that helped me go out, and I'll go back to her a bit later. Initially, when at the beginning of the school year, they say, "Oh, who's been to England?" And put my finger up and I was like, yeah, I've been to the UK. And she was, oh, right, really? Did you go to London? Have you seen Buckingham Palace and all that? And you realize, oh shit, I shouldn't have said that because I've seen none of the things I should have seen, actually. You just go, no, I've seen the Bristol Meeting Hall. That's all you've seen. And you've gone for breaks with the brethren. And if you're lucky, they've taken you to the sweet shop and that's about that.
It's so true. Like, travel in the brethren is not real travel, right? And
I mean,
if they're pretending to do tours now, if they're pretending to do that, that is hilarious. And if they're inside and they're listening to that and they're thinking, oh, cool, yeah, we have tours now, we can do so much fun stuff. Realize that you're pretending to be normal. Yeah. You're just faking it. But the real thing is so much better. Like there's that thirst for knowledge that you're describing, that love of just learning about culture and everything when you're brand new, it doesn't go away. I still love it. I still love going to museums. I still love meeting random strangers from all over the world, listening to their stories, and you're just like fascinated. You're like, wow, right? It's amazing.
In a weird kind of way, the fact that it enhances it in a weird kind of way, it makes it even better. But not to say that we should be brought up with the peeps, but it kind of like, there are some people that told me, like, you do realize this is so much more intense for you. And I was like, I know, like the first concert I went to into Hyde Park, it was the King's Charles Trust or something. And they throw these random concerts with different groups. And I saw Eric Clapton and George Michael and the Spice Girls. And it's like, awesome. I was having the time of my life, but these people had been to other concerts before, so it's not the same for them. For me, I was like, oh, throughout. You really don't need much. I was like, wow.
George Michael was on my bucket list that I missed out on. I would love to.
Gosh, and yeah, I know. And it's like, wow, like I'm there. It's happening to me now. I've got to pinch myself. And all this, and the other people like watch you and go like, what is going on with you? Like, you're a freak. Because on each of the things I got over and over excited. It was like beyond exciting each time and each time and each time. And then going to the movies, oh my God, best things ever. Going to the restaurant, best thing ever. You know how like when you go to a restaurant as well, I don't know about you, but I was so not trained to go to my first restaurant. Like I was there and, with people took me like, I was really lucky because I think I was so candid. I think people took a shine on me, like the way that, oh, we'll take you to the restaurant. Sometimes it's clients from the hotel say, oh, we'd like to take you out. I was like, oh, that's kind. And like, I let them do it. But the very first restaurants, they bring the menu and you've got to choose and you're like thinking, oh, hang on. Like, and they go like, what would you like to eat? And you, oh, hang on. Like, when we're at the peeps, you just eat what you get given. So you don't have to take that decision. So suddenly, like, you're there with your menu and thinking, I don't know what I want to eat. Actually do not know because there's all this. And you think,
and you don't know what it is.
And it's like really strange because suddenly you've got to take this very simple decision. But it was like very strange. And then go like, what would you want to drink? And I was like, I don't know. What are you drinking? I'll do the same as you. It's very silly. It's like, I'll eat the same as you. I'll drink the same as you because it's just easier.
I was really surprised at restaurants going out at the beginning and then seeing people order wine. And I was like, you're not drinking scotch with everything? Like, why? What is this wine? Now, I know in France, they probably drank wine with all your meals, but in North America, it wasn't that popular when I was in the Brethren. It was, you took your whiskey drink to dinner. Yeah.
In the breaks, we had like long whiskey drinks, just like as an apéro, like before each meal. And then it was wine. But, they do drink a lot in France too. Don't worry. It's in the genes. And I do remember about that, like arriving into London and sometimes going to the pub and ordering, they say, oh, what would you like to drink? Normally people like, they go for a beer or a glass of wine. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll have a scotch. And they were like, really? Like this 18 candid-year-old boy that we've just seen, he drinks whiskey actually. And
same thing happened to me. Like people are like, you're 18, you're drinking scotch? Like why? How do you know about Black 14? Label?
So I really had the time of my life. I mean, hard moments, of course, and you're losing all your friends and family and all that. But really, seriously, from 18 to 25, I really didn't question it because I had so much to discover, get in, and it was so exciting. Life was so exciting. I discovered about boys, about girls, friends, people from all over the world. London's like so cosmopolitan. It's like brilliant. Oh yes.
Oh, look at that.
I know. So then, yeah. The problem with having said that is like 2 or 3 years down the line, I could have literally gone borderline into, maybe turning not such a good story. And I bumped into a choreographer and she saw potential in me immediately. She went, "You're a dancer, aren't you?" I said, "No, I've never danced in my life, but I wish I had because I've always wanted to do that. I love theatre and all that." And she said, "Come to my class tonight and I'm putting you on my next show." And she did. And literally, she had a blank page to work with. And these are some of my first shows I did in London. This is the very first show I did, the one right now. I'm Sid's not in Toy Story. And and she
Good
said,
for you.
"I'm going to give you the role of the baddie." And I'm like, "No, you can't do that. I can't be the devil one." And she says, "No, you really want to be the baddie. You really do." And I absolutely loved it. And when it came to the makeup and I looked at my devilish face, I was like, "Oh, I can't believe I'm doing this. This is too much."
It must have felt amazing though.
It was. And in this particular like prayer-like moment, I'm like, she kind of made me rap a kind of weird prayer. The black widow is sitting in the middle of the web, is the fly she seeks. And that was really good. And she was like, I think to her, I was like raw talent. Like she could do anything. I was prepared to do it because I had no, I didn't really have a sense of shame because I was like, this was like left with the peeps. I was like, gone so humiliated then that, what could take beyond that? So and I was so keen, to try. And I love theatres all throughout my youth. I really love the arts, and we were not allowed to go to the theatre. So every time I saw a picture of a theatre in a book and all that, I was like, absolutely wow. And to me, there's still, when each time I go into a theatre, I get a sense of like going into a meeting hall as well. Like you get a sense of community and like being there with other people. And there's that when they sing a song, it's a bit like, wow, like all the voices when you go to an opera or when you go and see a ballet. So there's all that sense. It creates that magic to me. And but I didn't know that obviously until I went for the first time into a theatre. And then on top of that, meeting that choreographer, she really changed my life. She really did, like, because she took me on the other side. And suddenly what hadn't been allowed at all these years, all the school plays I couldn't do, which really hurt, really sucks. Like all these school plays, no, you're not doing it. But I'm good at it. I know the lines already. No, you can't do the school play.
Wow. Yeah.
It's really, really cruel. And so like she allowed me to do that. And for the best part of 10 years I've done that. I was like doing the pantomimes in London. So I was never West End because it was too late, trained way too late. But it was the fringe scene, which was much more fun anyway. So it's like the fringe circuit scene. And we used to put on these shows regularly. And at each Christmas, they were putting on the pantomime. And I ended up being like a whole part of the team, like doing the costumes. And on the latest ones, I used to write them. And so, brilliant approach to life. Yeah. Anybody from the peeps go into theatre, acting and all that and dancing does you a world of good.
I love your story because your story, it's a success story and it's a happy story, right?
Yeah.
And your love for life is very evident. I love that.
I know my face hurts from smiling.
Oh, it's nice to have a happy episode,
Yeah.
And so what are you doing now?
Sorry?
What do you do now?
Now I've turned, after all these years of excitement, I mean, it also comes, I'm obviously talking about the high moments. There's also loads of low moments. And, I had some really bad moments. I was penniless for quite a big period of time, I'm still skint. I still don't have any money. I mean, that's the story of my life.
Welcome to
it
the
doesn't
club.
matter. I've got freedom.
Right.
But, because when you start in life with just a luggage, I mean, everything just gets more complicated. It gets more complicated to get a house, more complicated to get a car. Even at the beginning, when I arrived in London, I literally arrived with €500, pounds, whichever, which is nothing. By the time I paid for my 2 weeks bedsit deposit and my week in advance, I had nothing left. And I was with Peeb's clothes. And one of the first wages I had was like, oh, I need to buy a pair of jeans. I need to buy a pair of trainers because I don't want to be dressed like this in London. Suddenly these things were really super important at that age. When you're 18, you just don't, you like thinking, oh, what about all these white shirts? They were very good for work because, they went well with my uniform, but that was about it. So, yeah, everything gets more complicated. I had some real down moments, and yeah, let's talk about the down moments as well. Life gets complicated, and I could easily have torn. I was always borderline as well. When you do too much of the clubbing and too much of the dancing and too much of the partying because you've been not given enough of that. The danger is you can also become addicted to the alcohol. That's one thing, obviously, because that's one of our weaknesses in the Peebs. But to other substances, and I'm not sure we're allowed to talk about it, but yeah, drugs.
Sure.
I mean,
we talk about everything here.
Yeah, kids that are going out there, they'll be, facing that as well. And you're not prepared for that. You're not prepared for the sex either. You're not prepared for anything. So I was like, my hungriness for all these things. Oh, let's go to the bar. Oh, now what's that? Oh, a leather bar. Oh, I don't know what's that all about. Let's go in. Oh, you're discovering all these things. And then comes a moment, it was 2 or 3 years down the line, I was like, oh, I was about to explode. It was like, suddenly it's too much. What is going on? And, kind of burnout, or like, I don't know what to call it, but it was like, oh, like if you're not careful here, something bad could happen. You could turn the bad way. And what do you really want to do with your life? And suddenly, you have to make choices. You get, it's like, well, who do I want to be in life? And do I actually want to justify, also that little voice, do you really want to justify, what they've been telling you all along, that, you're going to be that, really bad person, you're going to finish in the streets because you've not done anything with your life. So that kind of helps as well in a weird kind of way. But yeah, I mean, what do you do? Like when you're trying all these things because suddenly there's no limit, and that's not a good thing either. It's like, it's dangerous. And I could easily have fallen on the other side, and there were moments which are completely borderline, and that's perfectly fine, and I'm happy to talk about it. But yeah, it could have been like totally gone on the wrong side and be not a success story at all. And I was really good that I had all these amazing women in my life. I've always been like, they're my guardian angels. I seriously believe in that. Like, I believe in these things. I'm not sure I believe in God and the Lord Jesus Christ, things like how they believe into it in the brethren. But guardian angels and the magic of life, I believe in that. And one of them is my English teacher, which I've talked about. And she really helped me at that age when I was 16, 17, 18. I was calling her and she would listen, etc., etc. And when again, like I was in my 20s, pretty much when I came into London, I sent her a letter. I said, well, I've now moved, I've made it, I'm out. Like, and I'm in London, like, come and visit me at the hotel. And she didn't reply. And in these days, it was still phone calls and letters, like I didn't have email. Like in 96, 97, emails were just starting to appear. And I didn't have a computer then. And so I was sending her these letters. And she was receiving them, and for a little while, she didn't respond. And I think she probably, oh God, like, it's that crazy kid again. Like, what have I done? and it wasn't that. But weeks later, I said, look, listen, I've got you. I can really get you a good deal at the hotel. And I was like, it was literally, she had a week for the price of one night. You know, I was like doing my little business with the receptionist and all that. And she said, okay, yeah, I am making that trip to London. And she came to London, and then we just realized we are best friends. It doesn't matter. You were my teacher, and we're 20 years apart. It doesn't matter. You were like, you know, you're a soulmate. And I spent all my time with her, and we stayed in really good contact. And a couple of years down the line, she could see that, you know, things could turn sour for me. Things could have really taken a bad turn. And on one of her visits to London, she went, well, you know, I really think you need to do something with your life and with your story. And maybe it's time that you started expressing it, because people don't realize what you've gone through. And you are special in that, you know, not a lot of people have lived. I think when you come out of the Plymouth Brethren, you kind of realize that, but you think, oh, all the other people have had their shit to deal with as well. So, you know, you feel you don't. I felt I didn't have the authority to voice out what had happened to me. And also, like, you're not being trained to be a moaner or anything like that. So you don't express out your pain and your anger and the struggles you've been through and all that. And she was like, she'd say, well, you should do it. You know, do something about it. And maybe what you should do is write a book. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to write a book. You know, what kind of nonsense is that? And she said, well, what if we write it together? Maybe you keep sending me these letters, and maybe we could just do a correspondence. And this is how the book came up. Like, and I've sent you the pictures of it, and I've got it here.
Yeah, I'll share the screen of it.
Notre correspondance, which literally it's like a play on words. It's like all correspondency, but it means all bodies, this dense bridge. And so it got written within the space of 6 weeks to 2 months. And I just vomited all the stuff I needed to vomit on paper. And it was like, some bits of it are just like super hardcore. Some bits of it are super poetic. And she replied to me, and she's coming with a different turn on things, because she was that teacher in a public school who was also told, oh, the PIBS kids cannot go to your classes on a Saturday morning, and that's fine. We're allowing that. And the PIBS kids are not going to your classes when you're showing a film. And the PIBS kids are not allowed this. And she thought, this is just not on. Why is this going on? Why is this allowed? You know? You know, this is France, and this is the 90s. Why are these people allowed to cut corners on the education, on the sexual education, on all the classes that take place on the screen? They're not allowed to go. And so her angle was like, I want to denounce that as well. It's like, we need to make a denunciation of it. So that book was written as such. So it's like a kind of puzzle with different correspondences, like letters, which I write to her, and like when I was randomly thinking about something. And so there's some really happy moments, and then some really, really super dark moments as well. And some memories as well. Like at one stage, there's a description of a 3-day meeting, and I'm on the lap of my dad, and we start singing the number 7, hark, happy, and loudly. You know, everybody knows that one. and it's all that story. And then suddenly I take it into a whirlwind where there's all these people and all the scarves and all the girls and all, they're all getting married, and all the busloads of English brethren arriving, and we're in that meeting hall and we're waiting for Mr. Halls. Oh, I called him Mr. Halls because I knew I'd get in trouble otherwise. So all the names had changed. And so it kind of randomly talks about that. It's not the best book of the planet at all by any means, but for me it was what we call therapeutic writing.
I love it. Is it in English too, or is it just printed in French?
So it's just printed in French, and it was printed by 1,000 copies. So we found an editor, like a publishing house, that wanted to publish it, and they said, okay, your book is good. It's not mainstream, but we'll give it a try. And it's like they say, well, we'll print 1,000 copies, and if it works, that, you know, this is book companies, they function like that anyway. They print 1,000 copies. If it works, they'll print another 1,000, and if it really works, they'll print 10,000 or 100,000. But they don't print 100,000 immediately. Anyway, it wouldn't have sold. So they print all 100 or 1,000 copies, and then they put it in their catalog, and then it's down to the bookshops everywhere to order a copy, and they say, well, this is the new stuff coming out this month. So of course it didn't generate much interest, but then what happened is we had it as a support, and we did a full book launch in our villages, because at that stage we're like, okay, we're living in this village, she knows all the teachers from the school, they need to know what's going on in there, because some of them are turning a blind eye. Some of them they know something not right is going on. Why are the girls coming with a scarf in class? You know, why are we not allowed to go to school on a Saturday morning? Why are we not allowed the sex lessons and all that, the sex education? You know, this is not right. And it's easy to turn a blind eye, and, you know, you're a teacher or you're a mayor of a town or you're a politician, and you go like, oh yeah, but they're no trouble. They actually bring in, look, they've got good businesses, you know, they're quite integrated. They're no trouble. If we ask them to do something quietly, they'll do it. If we ask them to pay for something, they'll pay for it. You know, they're good people. So it was like, no, it's not okay. Like, why are you allowing this to go on? So, like, we're in these villages, so we had an immediate audience, and then we started to tour in Saint-Etienne, and we did the tours of a few libraries. So anyway, to cut the story short, we ended up selling about 800 copies out of the 1,000 to an audience that was actually quite kind of open to us, but nonetheless, you know, and we did book signing sessions. And what happened is, in one of these, somebody who read it, and well, it was actually my teacher's ex. It was like, this is not on like what you've lived, and this is not on that this is going on. We need to do something about it. So he created an association, which is called the AVIF, and it stands for Aide aux Victimes des Frères Exclusifs. So it's like to help the victims of the exclusive brethren. And he was really good because he's got a law background. So he was like suddenly saying, okay, this is not on. They can't do this. We can push them on that. We can put pressure on this, and we can put pressure on that. And this is what we started doing. And then my brothers were joining, and some of the PIBs in France. The good thing is, like, in France, you kind of know all the ex-PIBs, because it's such a kind of a small community that anytime somebody goes out, you know who's gone out. And some of them wanting to join, some of them didn't want to join because they were like, nah, and I totally understand. It's fine. Sometimes, like, you're out of the PIBs and you don't want to do anything with them for a while. And sometimes you want revenge, or, like, you know, the truth to come out, or revenge not being necessarily the good word. And so some of them were more committed than others. And we started to do actions, and we started to have banisters, like, saying, like, this is not right, you know, the French rioting system. And and they very quickly had enough, because we went opposite their meeting halls with banners. And it's a long story, so I don't know whether we want to get into all this. I don't know. Do we have time? Do we not have time? Maybe we can.
Yeah, let's briefly go through it. I think it's important to briefly go through it.
What happened is,
give the short version.
A family got taken their 3 kids. So there's a family from Lyon, a couple. They got taken their 3 kids. The mum was from Germany, and the 3 kids suddenly disappeared to Germany, and he was put out of fellowship with him and his wife. And we're like, you can't do that. You can't kidnap these children. So this is where we had these banners, like, free, and we had their name, the 3 kids, free, Plymouth Brethren, kidnappers. And obviously they didn't like that at all. And they were like saying, this is defamation. And we're like, no, it's not, because you've taken those kids. So then bring the kids back to France, give them back to their parents, and we can take off the banner that's opposite your meeting hall. And then we put these big banners opposite the Lyon meeting hall, and we put it once there was a big meeting, one of the fellowship meetings in Lyon, and a Eurostar charter arrived in Lyon train station. We had the banners then, and we were filming, and then we had the banners outside the meeting hall. And of course, really quickly, they took us to court.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the downside of that story is that the brother that was put out of fellowship was actually doing sexual, how do you call it when they
Abuse?
to his daughter. So in a weird kind of way, they were right of taking the kid away from the dad, and that didn't help us in our purpose. So it was one of these scenarios that it collapsed all on itself, because we were really loud at saying, you know, you've kidnapped these kids, bring them back to the parents. And then when we figured out that this was happened, like, it gives you very limited, you know, levels to play with. So that kind of turned on itself. But in any case, they had enough of us. They had enough of the AVIF and any events. Like, so they started hiring the best lawyers. And to cut the story short, we were taken to court. And my brother, who by then was the president of the association, like, got in really big trouble. And we had to pay out a massive sum of money, which we didn't have because we were all, you know, free. It was all free time. We were not like, you know, no money. So it all came out of our pockets to pay back what we had to pay them back, because they won the case. So then that kind of just stopped on itself and collapsed, and which is a shame. But having said that, in the meantime, because Olivier, the bloke who was like kind of dealing with the association, is very good with law, and he'd send letters to all the politicians. And my brother was invited to the Assemblée Nationale, which is the equivalent of House of in the States with the House of Congress, and in England the House of Commons is where the laws are taken and where the, you know, all the politicians gather. And he was invited there, and there was a big survey that was launched on the Brethren by the anti-cult surveys that take on in France, in the same way that they would survey, I don't know, Jehovah's Witnesses, and they kind of always survey these groups just to make sure that if anything goes beyond certain limits, then they can step in, or Islamic churches as well, or, you know, things like that. And so the PIBs were under scrutiny then, and the fact that they were at that stage, they'd done their schools already, so they were under intense scrutiny. I don't think anything has happened as such about it, but at least it created that. So that's, yeah, one good thing that came out of that book was that, and also the fact that it healed me, and that it got talking about, like, loads of people, you know, got talking about it, and even in the village, like, some people came to me, oh, the ladies from the library, like, were like, oh my god, like, we loved your book, like, you're so clever that you've done that book, because we knew something was wrong. But they don't know the extent, and they don't know the hurt, and they don't know, like, sometimes it's complicated to say, well, you know, it's all very well to say I can't eat with you, but what hides behind that is more that than just I can't eat a, you know, a baguette and a croissant with you. You know, it's beyond that.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm going to put this out there for any of the ex-members. I would love to have a up-to-date list of everybody who's written a book and it's been published, right? I don't care if it's, like, it'd be so good. I mean, I have a outdated list at the end of our podcast that's on there, but I would love to have an up-to-date list of all of the books that are out there, because there's so many that we don't know about, and it's super important literature to have out there for the public to read and to be informed. It's just another way to help expose what went on inside the exclusive Brethren, Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. So yeah, that's awesome that you got to write it. And it's very healing. It's so healing to come out and speak about what you went through, or to write it out what you went through. Yeah.
It really helped me. And it was really at that moment where I could have taken a really bad turn. So it kind of really helped me. And then because there was this choreographer who was like full on to me, then I moved on to being a kind of full-time artist. Well, I was working for Eurostar as my alimentary job because, you know, one needs to eat, and all the shows were not really paying for themselves. So it's like the little bit of money we were doing, we're just paying for the dance classes or the singing classes or whatever. And yeah, I just decided, well, this is me. I'm going to be an artist. What, like, completely the line that was not allowed in there. Like, but that in hindsight, I always wanted to do that. When you look at the initial pictures of me as a kid, I'm always with a guitar or I'm playing the piano, and I was dressing up. So it's just only the you know, in that logical line that I would end up doing something like that.
And I'm
also
going to share, I'll share the pictures that you sent me of what you do now.
Oh, what I do now. So now I'm like, when I came back to France after 15 years of London, I just launched my business of being of couture. Like, so now I'm a dressmaker. So a dressmaker, I do wedding dresses and stage outfits for artists, magicians, and cabarets, and evening wear, and anything wacky.
And it's just absolutely incredible work.
Wow.
Like, absolutely incredible. Like,
yeah, and I like to put fashion shows. So obviously, yeah.
Very cool.
This is me.
Absolutely incredible.
Wow. And then this is at wedding fairs. So I do wedding fairs to you know, take orders.
Absolutely incredible.
The feathers, absolutely gorgeous. The feathers and the lace.
Yeah. So this is it. Yeah, my mum it's very much a twist because it's my mum that taught me how to sew, and my dad had the fabric shop. And I think they've been biting their fingers for it. They said, well, I probably thought, well, why didn't we choose to sell, you know, fruit and vegetables on the market instead of fabric? But never mind. Yeah. It gave me so without a good start in life, you know, it's quite interesting because it twisted and it gave me all that, and I'm having a really rich life, not rich in money, but rich in meeting very different people and having a really interesting job. And that's
what it's about, right? It isn't about the financial richness of life.
No,
it isn't.
No.
I mean, yes, we need to eat, and yes,
well,
I would love to share
a bit some of his wealth, you know, why not? But
right, but it is exactly. But it's more about, that is the biggest thing that most ex-members say when they leave, right? Is there's this just zest for finding that fullness and that fulfillment and that just being present in the moment with everything that's happening, right?
Yeah.
I mean, every single ex-member who has separation from their family, we all grieve it. It all hurts. We walk every day with crutches. I mean, I look at Lane and what Lane's doing right now and his traveling, and it's just incredible what a lot of these ex-members, what we find ourselves craving and creating in our lives because of what we've experienced.
Yeah.
What would you say, like, in your opinion, Stéphane, and what you've experienced, what would you say is the biggest downfall of the PBCC?
Have I got 2 hours? No, I don't.
Well, everybody's got a different opinion. I'm not sure. Some people say alcohol. Some people say it's, you know, like, people are so trapped in there. And so I like asking the guests this because everybody's got a different insight, and it sometimes sparks a light bulb inside somebody's brain inside there.
I don't know, but I feel so sorry. I think it's like you say, they're really trapped. I mean, recently was my dad passed and I was invited to the funeral. They've been very good with that. They communicated and we were invited and we were allowed to go and see the body and that. And I was like standing in their lounges and they've got all this stuff. They've all got they've got massive televisions now. and they've got this piano which is like completely electronical and like with all the gadgets, and they've got music systems, and they've got these all fancy cars, and this is, you know, my sister and my brother-in-law, and I'm like, how on earth can you like just live that lifestyle and not see that you are trapped? Because at the end of the day, it's you are still trapped into this, and I feel so sorry for them, and I felt sorry for my sister. She was like rushing around and she was cooking for everyone. I feel so sorry, like, for you, the girls. Oh my god, like, you know, I was dressing up as a girl when I was a kid because I wanted to be one, and I was like, now I'm like thinking, oh, thank God, it must be so complicated for a sister to come out. I think even more than for a brother, and they are so trapped. And I'm thinking, and so many happyless weddings, and probably like what they must have to endure with their husbands, and it's
and that the quality of lifestyle they have to uphold, right? Like you say, it's so busy and it's so complicated.
The rhythm.
Yeah,
you're meeting every day, and then you've got to cook for all these people. Like at the break, you've got to cook for like 30 people. I mean, how do they do it?
It's just such a stressful life. Like I've heard about it recently. A recent lever just describing the types of food and charcuterie boards they got to put out now, and everything has to be high end, and the alcohol has to be high end, and everything. And I just want, if there's some listeners on the inside, that are still in there that are wondering about this, realize that like you don't have to live that way, right? Like I recently sold all my possessions except for a couple boxes, and now for 3 months I've been living out of a suitcase. And cool. I mean, I did that with my old career, and I love it. So you don't need a lot of money. You don't need possessions and houses. Yeah. There's so much more to life to just living simply. Like, fuck possessions. That's my thing now. Like, fuck that. I don't need a big house. I don't want any of those nasty fast cars. Like, cool. Yeah. No. I'll drive them. They're cool. But experiences and a little possessions is so much better. And the second thing I want to say before we close to those insiders, my second point today is, if you're getting priestly visits and you're stuck in there and you can't get out yet, that sucks. But push through and feel free to lie your face off to the priests.
Yes.
They're lying to you. Lie away and have fun with it. Make up tons of bullshit, whatever you got to. Don't let them get to you. Lie through every priestly visit that you get, right? And just set up that right time, and you will be able to escape too.
Make sure you're recording. Sometimes people, this is what I've really been feeling inside there with the stuff that's been coming in, is it's super important. You need to secretly record these priestly visits so that you can go back and listen to them and really hear it as an outsider of what actually went down. Because in the moment of it, I know that there's a lot of surrendering. You got to succumb, and you feel so stuck in there. Just instead of I guess trying to find a way to just make your way through that, listen to the recording so that you can get your head back in the space of why your goal is still to leave. Because a lot of people get caught in these priestly visits, and then it's like they get sucked back in through the priestly visits. If you're recording them, you're not going to get sucked back in if you're listening to that over and over and over of why it sounds as ridiculous as it is. When you get back to hear why they're saying what they're saying, it gives you some clarity, and it strengthens your capability and the capacity to be able to get out of there.
Yeah. And if you're struggling with it afterwards, send it to somebody else. Because we had one recently that got sent to us, and we were able to take that priestly visit and put words above it so that you could see the twist. And this person found it really helpful to have someone else go back in there and say, okay, this is where they twisted it on you. This is why you felt like you couldn't get anywhere, because sometimes you feel like you're just right up against a wall. And you try and explain it, and they keep turning it around on you.
Yeah.
If they do that to you, walk away and then send it to somebody else. Have somebody else listen to it and say, what am I saying wrong? Why do they not understand me? Why won't they accept what I'm telling them? And sometimes that'll help, like, get past that roadblock.
Because that is the biggest obstacle that everybody's overcoming right now, or all the priestly visits, right? It is the biggest obstacle of being able to finally get out of there. right? Especially if you're actively, acting out, or they're actively knowing that you're trying to leave, right? The hurdle is the priestly visits.
And the thing with that is they create so much fear.
Yeah.
And that stayed with me for quite a while, I have to say. Like, even when I was out and like, every Sunday morning, sometimes I was still in a nightclub and I was thinking, what if the rapture happens now?
Yes.
And you're
Yeah.
dancing to techno music and, and it kind of follows you for a little while, because they create such fear that you're not going to be saved. And, and for a little while I thought, oh, I need to pack in as much stuff as I can do. So then I go back in 6 months' time and then, just be back proper. And, it takes a little while for the fear to disappear, I found. And because they do create that fear, and that fear shouldn't be there. It's not existent. They just put it on you.
I was going to say,
Go
the
ahead, Cheryl.
Christian church should not be installing fear. A Christian church should be installing compassion, right?
Yeah.
So if you're feeling fearful, then that is your alarm bell again, that you're not in the right place. That is not what life is about. Life isn't about facing fear all the time. Life isn't about facing when something happens. Oh, what did you do wrong? Right? Those are all cult brainwashing programs that are instilled in the PBCC from the very beginning. Right? So
and they learned it from other cults.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Go ahead, Lane.
Oh, I was just going to say before we get off, I really want to thank our spies on the inside. It's you guys and girls that are giving us the information that is helping these investigations go forward. It's so valuable. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes. Yeah, it is. There's a lot of movement happening. And so it's everybody who comes on and does these podcasts. So thank you so much, Stéphane. It's everybody who steps forward and realizes, hey, you know what? It's not as scary. And it isn't as scary. I know that we have this fear programmed in us, but the more of us that step forward, and whatever way, shape, or form you see fit, it's super important that the more of us step forward. We need more of you coming forward, whether that's writing a book, whether that's doing a podcast, whether that's speaking to a journalist, whether that is, contacting someone to do a media blitz, whatever that is, we are needing more people to step forward.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Stéphane. That was absolutely incredible. It was such a beautiful way to start my day, our day. Evening there for you. It's morning for us. My face got a good workout with smiling. Thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for doing it and all the time you put into this. And it's really good. I'm really happy I done it. I'm honored.
Yes. Oh, thank you.
And one more quick note for our viewers. If you'll click like and if you'll click subscribe, that really, really helps us on our algorithms.
And comment. Put a little comment too. We'll answer you.
Yeah.
And if anybody has any questions
out in there, get out.
Yes, and if you're in there, get out.
Get a life
out there.
Get a life.
For anybody who has any questions or needs help from inside, reach out to info.getalife@proton.me and our team will respond to you. Anyhow, much love to everybody. Thanks everyone for their hard work in these last couple months. They have been very prosperous for us, and soon enough, we'll all see the results of this. So thanks everyone.
Cool.
Bye-bye.
If you are in a high-demand religious group and need help, please go to oliveleaf.network. To share your story or be a guest on the show, email info.getalife@proton.me. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to Get a Life, and comment.